today's market is they see success as money, whereas we saw success as knowledge. You want me to fix an appliance, it's $10. You want me to fix an air conditioner, now it's $20.
Those individuals that are jumping for a little raise from one job to another, for them this $1 an hour might make the difference between making their mortgage payments or not making it in a month. Inflation has been devastating for the last 2, 3, 4 years. The government numbers are nowhere near the reality.
Come in, be clear about where you can start. Maybe we get you prepared with that VOTEC in the education system, so you don't come in as a green Tech 1. Maybe you're Tech 2 now. Now you get, you're 20-something an hour plus 40% off an apartment to live on site. That's great when you're an 18-year-old, right?
Can we get a runner between those properties that their salary is dispersed over, multiple sites within that portfolio?
It was not a successful thing because they didn't make the time to manage those employees. In my personal opinion, someone on a maintenance, like a maintenance regional director should be doing that. Not a regional property manager only because they're overseeing the budget.
Carry a barrel, carry the plywood off the truck, but we can't make facilities and construction sexy enough so that people say, that's a career path.
Welcome back, all of you. Glad to have you all here today. And let's go around the table and just introduce ourselves. I'm starting with Mickey. It's his first time. So Mickey, why don't you introduce yourself to the group?
Hi guys, my name is Mickey. I've been in the multifamily industry for going on 25 years now. Been in a regional role for about 6, but multi-site for many more than that. Actually on the market. So if you guys have any connections out there, I appreciate that as well. I'm not just restricted to facilities, though. I know all aspects of multifamily. So if there's an operations position available, I'd be interested in that as well. But pleasure to meet you all. Thank you, Adrian.
Absolutely. Jay?
Hi, guys. Again, Jay Abney, National Senior Director of Maintenance and Technical Education for Greystar. Been in the industry about 39 years.
Jason?
Jason Fine, VP of Maintenance and Facilities at Dominium, and been around for a while, just like the rest of us.
I had a great time yesterday with Darren. We did a podcast, the maintenance podcast. He did my maintenance podcast. We had a great time. So I think it's coming out next week. So keep an eye on it. You have a great guy out there. Mike Malloy, welcome, sir.
Welcome. Thanks for having me. Mike Malloy, Vice President of Facilities with the NRP Group. I've been around a while as well, but joined this call a handful of times, and great conversation. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Daniel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Daniel Bowles, Regional Maintenance Manager for NRP Group. I've been in the industry for probably 20 years plus, and been in this role for 8 years in this role. We've been with NRP for about 11 years.
Thank you. Scott?
Hi, Adrian. Hi, everybody. Scott Ployer, National Property Management Strategies Group. I am a consultant to the multifamily industry. Been around for almost 39 years. So I've got a brother on the call we're both neck and neck on the time-wise.
And Oscar?
Oscar Rodriguez Aguila, Southern California, CPM, have my own management firm, and maintenance is one of our strengths, so we need to work with this together.
Excellent. Once again, amazing to have you all here. I want to start with the first topic, attracting qualified talent. I want for us to focus on analyzing whether we're targeting the right pools of candidates and how tech-driven hiring platforms might streamline the process. What are some tools out there that you know of or you're using to make this process, hopefully seamless or better than, I guess, the competition or the average, right? Overcome the common struggles. So I want to start with you, Jay.
Well, just like everybody else, the struggle is trying to find, people that want to work in our industry and the trades anymore. Greystar does have a talent development team, and we have not just the development part, but the procurement. So we have a whole department that's going out there looking for people on the pre-employment side. What we're looking to do, and I think that's what everybody's been talking about lately in this group, is, how do we go back to screening? I think we brought that up a little bit in one of the calls. We went away from screening for a lot of legal reasons, I think. And I'm really trying to push it through Greystore and say, I think some pre-quizzes, some pre-employment screening based on trade skills. And it doesn't have to be, don't think of it like, hey, you're coming in for a Tech 1 and you don't have the skill set. So, you can't have this job. In our situation, we've got all kinds of open availability all the time. So maybe it's a pre-screening questionnaire that looks at the breadth of their skill set abilities, kind of sets them in that place and allows that that interviewee or interviewer to say, hey, this role might not be great for you, but you know what? We think you have Tech 3 capabilities here, and we have some other opportunities we can offer you. So it's not just limiting that role. So that's one thing. I'd like to see pre-employment technical aptitude screening coming back. We haven't done it today, but we're really talking about it now. And I think that's where it starts, in my opinion.
So Jay, I wanted to ask you, because I think, if I remember correctly, from one of our first meetings, Tech 1 to 3, these new job descriptions, these new jobs that you guys just created recently. Is that am I remembering this right?
You caught that, didn't you? Yeah, we called it a maintenance leveling project.
Yes.
Our L&D, our talented L&D team has finished canvassing, I think, maybe 12 regions in the U.S. and bringing together kind of different components, different levels, from service supervisors to the regionals to community managers and so on, to take a look at a big swath of our work requests and our daily duties, for example, and say, do we all agree as an organization, generally speaking, what a Tech 1 to a Tech 4 would look like? And we took all that data and we're compiling it now. We're trying to tie in what the required training would be like, what their job, totally revamping job descriptions based on that information, and then assigning certifications, in-house training, and so forth to that. But then it walks on to that, and I keep using the term cradle to grave. So high school to retirement is really what we're looking for in our company. Can we offer you something that you're coming out of VOTEC? Maybe we get in there and influence that group, come in, be clear about where you can start. Maybe we get you prepared with that VOTEC in the education system, so you don't come in as a green Tech 1. Maybe you're Tech 2 now. Now you get, you're 20 something an hour plus 40% off an apartment to live on site. That's great when you're an 18-year-old, right? And we've already given you maybe a year's worth of training specific to our multi-housing industry within that VOTEC skill set. And then we bring you in, and then we really want what all companies want. We want that clear ability to allow a team member to see where they can go from there. This is, if you do this and do this, then when the opportunity arises, that will be what that person will be looking for, and will appreciate and review the documented areas that you've worked on, the internal training, the internal certifications, and review that. Not just you're a great person and we got an opening and, we're going to fit you into this, but are you ready for it? Have we trained you for that? So we get rid of that Peter principle, and we trained you ahead before the job is available, and all on and on and on until we hit those above property leadership roles, because we want to promote from within. But can we start from that beginning? And I'm just going to say it again. I think it's great if you're going to HVAC schools and some of these other schools, but we lose most of those candidates unless we can give them a very top level job. They're not trained to be in multi-housing. They're trained to work on air conditioning systems. And so we bring them in, but we can't hold them because we can't offer that $35, $45 an hour. And we're still training them how to paint, turn units, take care of work requests, all these things. So there's that big chasm of tech skills. So I think really going to the public high schools, there is a high school in every neighborhood that we manage. Why wouldn't we be going in there and trying to influence those that are interested in coming into our industry? So,
yeah, I think stretching the career path, expanding it, right? to where you have more types of technicians and maybe creating like a corporate support team that actually mirrors the on-site level positions to where you have floaters, right? They're filling in for vacancies. Like those are several opportunities for each company, for every company to show we don't just have 4 positions. We just expanded it to like 10 or 12 right now. It could be so many things. It's so it's so rewarding and like it makes it more appealing. I met with a very young man yesterday, 24-year-old. He reached out to me via LinkedIn and we met in person. He told me, he shared with me that he wants to start in real estate. So I took some time and I tried to help him, to guide him, right, where to start. So he shared with me that when he was in high school, there was a company that came and did a presentation. They weren't in multifamily. They were just recruiting for, young men and women to become tailors. And then he went with them. He signed up with them. So this must be working, right? Whatever they did works. And he's 24 years old now, and he works for this company. He's looking for a career change, but obviously that original hook worked for him because he wanted to work for them. So I think there's a lot of potential out there. And I would love for everybody else to just kind of, share your thoughts on this too. If it's helpful to, to start with the high schoolers, start the recruiting right there. Mickey?
I think another untapped market, and I just started thinking about this recently, but Job Corps, it takes a lot of those high schoolers or people that are fresh out of high school that are trying to venture out on their own, and it's a trade school. But partnering with Job Corps, every city in almost every state has a Job Corps organization. So, and they're vocational. Jay, you touched on it, Votex. I mean, I know growing up, when I was going to high school, every Wednesday and Thursday, half our juniors and seniors left off campus to go to Votech to take trade classes. So I know of an organization out there in multifamily that is partnered with Valencia, and Valencia has an internship program specifically geared towards multifamily. And I think we just need to do a lot more of that on a broader basis as opposed to one organization in one city.
Yeah.
There's another organization out there. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Facilities, I think FM or something, that does like training programs across the country. I actually interviewed the founder of this initiative. I'm going to share it when I do a follow-up, when I send this group email to everyone to do the recap of today's meeting. I'm going to find, because actually I did a podcast with him, so I'm going to share it with you all. This might be another resource that might be worth looking into, for talent out there. The program is pretty cool. I don't want to take a lot of, the time here to just kind of explain the program, but it's, they have a structure right there. So they give these, young folks the basics. So when you go to talk to them, you don't just take them from the street directly. They have a little bit of a, base of, knowledge, or at least they have an idea. What is it like to do maintenance? So I'll be happy to, to just kind of share that resource. Jason.
Yeah, I know I don't look like I have older kids, but I do, and I'm enjoying watching them get out of high school. And we're talking about trying to get them when they're coming out of high school and changing the whole cradle to the grave, from high school to retirement. I like that, the change of the way of wording it. But I'm watching my kids, go get jobs. And I know that there's maintenance jobs out there, or there's leasing jobs out there, and they're just not interested. And so like my son and a couple of his friends, they got jobs at the local tire repair shop. They're working at, little places, anywhere that somebody's going to offer them a job. So I'm a huge fan of trying to figure out how to get into these job fairs for high schools. I think we're all kind of doing similar things, going to trade schools and, putting out Indeed and Google, all these different postings about our positions. One thing that I know is a fact is that all of us are fighting for the same talent pool. And so I'm really trying to make sure that our company is grabbing the attention of the people that are applying and taking them and getting them into the process and making sure that the first couple of months is enjoyable. right? Instead of just getting them in and just here's your tools, get to work. I've seen it happen at a couple of our properties recently, and the people left, and I know exactly why they left, and they probably went to one of your guys' companies because you guys were hiring as well. So it's important that anybody that's listening or in this group, or we just got to make sure that when people, if we do get those applicants and we do get their attention and they do sign with us, we got to make sure that the first couple months is rewarding to them, and they know that they made the right decision, and that you make sure that you have the right training program too. There, right? Get them some training, get them feeling like they're learning in the first couple months, and I feel it'll pay dividends. So,
Yeah, I like to point out here there are a couple. Well, there are a few local apartment associations. They have this partnership with Goodwill. They do 5, 10 graduates every time they run those classes. Basically, they give them all the certifications that are available in the industry, including CAMT. And then at the end of when they graduate, they invite management companies to actually, they interview the management companies. So they're each sitting at a table at a desk, and each management company rep has like 5 or 10 minutes to make their case of why this individual should work for them. So that concept is amazing so far, right? They get offers, they get hired. But what I've learned is that, there's two things that happen a lot of times, like they being hired, they being sent to a property, and the service manager at the property is being told, well, we just got you like a graduate, not realizing that that graduate has, little to no hands-on experience, and they just throw them in there. The service manager is already overwhelmed. It's like, I asked for help. I didn't ask for somebody else to take more of my time to start to train them. And most of the times, more often than not, I see them failing. I actually asked here locally in Atlanta, I asked the apartment association, because this is one of the longest ran programs. And I've asked them, are you tracking those individuals? Because, companies are sponsoring this, management companies and vendors. So you're talking about thousands of dollars that they're invested in that person's education. And if they just leave our system, like, what is the benefit, right? It's beyond the feel good thing, right? So there's two things here, like, what are we doing to them once they graduate and they're ready to take on the world? Secondly is what scale, right? Jay could speak for that, I'm sure. He has pages of openings at Greystar. Like, how do we scale from like a program that does 5 or 10 graduates every 3 or 6 months to like the hundreds of thousands that we have? And I'm not criticizing. I'm saying it's great that there's initiatives, but then we also have to think in the future, like, they're not nearly sufficient. How do we scale these initiatives and we make this like more impactful? So I would love your stake on that as well. Your thoughts, Daniel?
Yeah, mine is I'm a big component of the larger sites bringing in entry level maintenance guys from high schools, wherever, and teaching them the trade. And then grooming them and then moving them into some of the other sites. One of my biggest issues, though, the Affordable East, I have a lot of single man sites. I've got a handful of 2 maintenance guys, but the bulk of my sites are single person sites. So it is hard to bring in somebody that's new into the industry, somebody that needs all of these trainings and certifications, when I've got to get somebody in there that can run the property and run it quickly. And one of the things that I'm coming up against is, with the regionals want a body in there. They want to hire somebody, and I have the opportunity to interview these people. May or may not agree with them, but the regionals want a body. That property has been vacant for so long. When they get an applicant, they're like, we got to move on this guy. And it's like, listen, you're going to get if you want a body, that's what you're going to get. How do we get a qualified applicant into a situation like that? One of the things that I think of is, if we look at the portfolio as a whole, the smaller portfolios, can we get a runner between those properties that their salary is dispersed over, multiple sites within that portfolio? And, when we are down somebody, we can utilize that person a lot more. When we have somebody new coming into it, we can use that person to train a lot more. But the downside to that is pitching that sale. Who's going to carry this extra? Who's going to carry the burden of this extra cost? To have a floater in between the sites. So that's my biggest struggle, is how do I get somebody into a position where I cannot, particularly sit there and groom somebody or baby somebody into coming into that position. The handful of sites that I do have that have multiple maintenance guys, that's great for them to work and for those guys to teach and mentor the other ones and then move them on to bigger or onto smaller sites.
I think I have the pitch for you, Daniel. This is something that I've actually done. So when you look in one of your markets, let's just say that you have 5 properties and the average number of vacancies, it's 4. Like any given time, you have an average of 4 vacant positions. You could go to management and say, I want you to hire me 2 floaters, not 4, 2 floaters, knowing that you're always going to have 4 vacancies at any given time, in average. And then you take those and you have them report to you or someone that could coordinate them from the corporate level, someone that knows the workload on all the properties, and they put them at the properties that need the help the most, right? So you float them around, and then you bill back their salary and their benefits to the sites based on the time that they worked at the site. So in other words, the money that a site will spend on temps, they just pay these floaters, and they're not coming out of the corporate payroll. I did that in the past. I actually built the entire team of support that way, and I was the only one, me as a director, that had the payroll assigned to corporate, came out of corporate. Everybody else, we build back the properties. It worked fine. It worked just fine, and it's no extra cost. Yes, sir. Yeah. Mickey.
Actually, the last 2 organizations that I've worked for, both First Communities as well as West Shore, we had a floater maintenance program. It worked out really, really well in the Atlanta market because First Communities is extremely saturated in that market. I believe they had 5 floaters. Schedules were predetermined like a month in advance. They knew exactly what property they were going to and what their focus was going to be, whether it was going to be getting work orders caught up or getting make readies or could be pressure washing. There was really no limit to what they were going to be doing. And then again, with West Shore, I actually, with the partnership of Jake Nathan, a director of facilities there, we started the floater service technician program with them. And I had a guy in St. Augustine who's based out of St. Augustine that would travel all the way to Tampa. He would go wherever we need him to go. The only downside to the larger statewide travel is you get into the expense, the hotel and the car and that kind of stuff. But I think in markets like Orlando, Atlanta, and these property management firms that have a saturation of 5 to 10 properties, it is absolutely beneficial. And to your point, they're clocking in and clocking out on that property.
Right. And that's the other side of it, is who is overseeing this moving piece? Because obviously we want to make sure that we're getting our most out of them. You know what I mean? And a lot of the guys, when they are doing their own thing, this community manager may think that they are at this property and they're over here, or maybe they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So it's something that you kind of got to keep eyes on that moving piece as well.
I ran the program myself when we implemented this. It worked out, but then I also seen models, other different companies that they created these floating positions, and they assigned them to regional property managers because they were assigned to like a portfolio with rationale that the regional property manager is ultimately in charge of those budgets, like oversees those budgets. And I don't disagree with that part. What I disagree with is that regional manager never has the time. They never going to check workload on the properties and like do that type of coordination work. It was not a successful thing because they didn't make the time to manage those employees. In my personal opinion, someone on a maintenance, like a maintenance, a regional director should be doing that. Not a regional property manager only because they're overseeing the budget. It could be communication at the top between the maintenance director and the regional property manager to say, okay, this is what we're doing here. This is what we get billed, back to, A, B, C properties. So they're not in the dark. But to say you got to manage like a floating maintenance team, That's not a recipe for success. In in a personal experience, maybe you guys had a different experience. I love to hear that.
Exactly how things worked out with me at First Communities. We would, as a regional facilities manager, I had three different regional community or regional property managers that we worked with, and a month before the schedule was put out, there was an email blast that went out that said, "What are your requests and why do you need them?" And that forced the regional managers to look at the assets as a whole and look at their work order load or look at their special project load or preventative maintenance and determine what those needs were and put that request in. And then the schedule was designed based on that and based on a first come, first served basis.
So great feedback, by the way. Thank you for that. Good information to take for us. But one of the things that I wanted to share is, for example, like Jay was mentioning, not only going to high schools, I have gone to some of the community colleges because some of them are beginning to have that type of setup where they want to do that. And in addition to that, I don't know if you have faced this, but I have faced a situation where we have to differentiate between somebody who's in construction and maintenance. I have had the experience that maintenance people come in. Oh, I'm a contractor. I was a construction. I did drywall, framing, whatever. And they come into our environment and they get all confused because they don't specialize in what we did, which is troubleshooting, right? We go to troubleshoot and get something done. And a person that comes from the construction side gets extremely frustrated. Typically, is not successful because they have a different mindset. And I think by you doing that, let's say you have 10 people that come in, especially with the newer generation that wants to do YouTubers and want to do everything easier, right? When they think maintenance, they think it's construction. You need to be able to kind of let them know that that's not it, that it's completely different. This is a good way to make a good wage. Also, perhaps one day they can become the experience and become a licensed contractor and then eventually do that if they want to pursue that, but make the separation between a construction and maintenance because it's a completely different thing. And that's how I've been able to be more successful. That let's say I have 10 inquiries and then I have four really solid people that know the difference and I'm able to work with them more than thinking everybody's construction. We need to be able to do a better way of bringing this information to let everybody know that maintenance is completely different than construction and how rewarding it could be if they want to have sky's the limit for them.
Yeah, it's kind of basic communication, setting up expectations. That should be done in the discovery, right? How the salespeople call that process. At the very beginning, they do discovery and they just kind of figure out, is this a good fit for, not just for us as an employer, but are we a good fit for them? Scott, please.
Yeah, Adrian, as you might recall from a prior episode, during my 30 years in operations from the ground up, I created special service teams, and the whole idea was to the point where we are talking about, how many vacancies do you have on a given month? How much do you, what do you have for turnover? How many people are you missing? As someone who has also been on the asset management and construction side of the house, it's the time value of money. Everybody's saying that they don't have the money, but the bottom line is that everybody's losing it. Vacancy loss is not recoverable. I've been a CPM for years, and anytime I did my business plans, I figured out what the loss was going to be on the bad debt, what the loss was going to be on the vacancy loss. Vacancy loss is a manageable line item. And I've worked for some of the biggest companies in the country. And, if I presented a budget that had a vacancy loss of more than 1.5%, people said to me, "What are you doing in the job?" And it was a tongue-in-cheek type thing, but sure, markets can drive that number. Ages of assets can drive that number. Waiting for a refi can drive that number. But in the end, the leasing agents are ready to do their job, and the facilities people are typically ready to do their job. But what we need to do is to actively deploy. To the point you made about setting up teams in areas, for years, I was saying to people that our best resources are probably living on our properties. We have people on our properties who, if we got them under our wing, we could train them. Now, I spent a considerable amount of time in the affordable industry, as you know, and I helped 2 companies set up apprenticeship programs with our residents, one in Chicago, one in California, where we talked about, putting people to work. If you're living at ABC Village, you can't work there. You can live there, but you got to go over to Green Acres Gardens, because that's where you're going to work, because we don't want people taking advantage of you where you live. So we created apprenticeship programs. I know of 2 national top 25 companies right now that have 1-year apprenticeship programs in line with their community colleges and their vocational technical schools, that they're going after it, and they're helping to better manage the challenge that my clients all face, which is on recruitment and retention, and everybody on this call who's on the line every day face, because I remember being on the line every day and I remember facing it. It's achievable if we think outside the box and we collaborate. One other thing that I always thought may have been helpful is, all right, I'm in an area where I've got a 1-man or a 2-person operation, and I only have 1 property within 20 miles. Well, is there something I can do with my colleagues at another company to potentially say, hey, listen, you must be facing the same thing I do with on-call and turnovers and things like that. Maybe there's a way for us to share staff on a fractional basis. And I think we need to think outside the box on that, Adrian, going forward, because I think there's value in that. Why wouldn't a ABC management company collaborate with its partners at XYZ management company and say, listen, I've got a person, you're going to take them X amount of time, I'll take them X amount of time. We both get value for the person, and you're paying them on a fractional basis. The goal would be, don't screw them out of the benefits. Someone's got to pick up the charge on the benefit side of that as well. But I see that fractional environment being something, as an industry, we should probably consider.
I totally agree with you, Scott. And this is something that I brought up in a previous meeting. I said, why shouldn't we consider Uber for maintenance? To where there's a platform where all the qualified individuals that don't want to, take on full-time assessments are putting their skills up out there, and the companies are going and they're selecting the right people. And also, they also have the possibility to rate those individuals, right? So when you have a person that's not really doing a good job and they're, rated 1 or 2 stars, then that kind of ends it all for them, because, nobody's going to want to hire them. So it's kind of like they self-eliminate. They eliminate themselves from the platform, from being called out. And the other one question that I have for you, Scott, is, do you think that this apprenticeship that you see taking place right now, do you think that there are scalable? Do you see the scalability into what they're doing, and how would they scale? Because I'm assuming they're starting small scale, but correct me if I'm wrong.
No, the 2 companies that I know that have set up these apprenticeship programs are both large, as I said, top 25 companies. It's a 1-year program where they work with, the schools in the area, the partnerships, the kids in the neighborhood. They're coming out of high school. Some of their apprentices are returning military that need to get a job once they get back from doing what they did when they served. I'm also with the National Association of Home Builders, as I'm a licensed builder. And I know that my colleagues and partners sitting around the table here in New England are crying for people to push a broom, carry a barrel, carry the plywood off the truck. But we can't make facilities and construction sexy enough so that people say, that's a career path. As I shared once before, my dad was a product of the Great Depression and a World War II veteran. And he said, anybody who can work with their hands will never go hungry. So my brothers were 2 cops, and I went into real estate, all got construction licenses. So we had a backup position. Those licenses have helped us over the years buy homes, scale businesses, and do everything. So the 2 companies with the apprentice programs are being looked at by their colleagues saying, how do we do this for our folks too?
Just a quick question. Mickey, I'll let you take over from here. I'm just curious, do you know how many people they're graduating currently from those apprenticeship programs? How many people a year?
I think on average, what I've seen with the recent graduating classes, somewhere between 30 and 40 people at any given point in time.
It's a good start. Mickey, please.
I actually got started in the industry in 1999 with United Dominion Realty and Trust, UDR, and my title was an apprentice. I wasn't necessarily coming to work with the expectation that I was punching apartments or doing work orders or doing groundskeeping. It was under the assumption that I was learning the role of what it's like to be a service technician. And yeah, I punched apartments. But while I was punching an apartment and the service technician was in there servicing the garbage disposal, the dishwasher, the refrigerator, the air conditioner, I was literally over their shoulder learning every aspect of what they were doing, so that within 24 months, I became a full-fledged certified HVAC, EPA certified, CPO certified technician, and was on to go on to do greater and better things. So wholeheartedly believe in the apprenticeship program because it worked for me.
Thank you, Mickey. Mike Malloy.
Yeah. I think I've been looking at these apprenticeship programs. I've talked to a few different, different, whether it's trade schools or workforce programs, and it's the the challenge with some of these is the cost of tuition. First of all, is a barrier of entry to a lot of these people who want the skills but don't know where to go for the training. There's companies like us and all of ours who would love to be able to train them, but developing an effective training program to take someone that is, entry level, that to create a scalable training program is a challenge that everybody, I think, is trying to solve. There are some really good programs out there that, like you can sponsor these associates, or you can sponsor you can partner with these different workforce training programs, which I think are really great. And I think you see a lot of growth in those programs right now. But we just haven't, I'm looking at that, but we haven't tried it or tested it or been successful. But those are the types of things that I'm looking at, because there is a need, obviously. And as an industry, we all talk about it, we all recognize it. But the thing is it's a costly endeavor, and somebody has to foot the bill, right? So we all have these good ideas. It's just, like someone, a few of you have mentioned going to the schools. I think that's absolutely a great idea, that who does that? I think the industry, somehow we have to figure out how to recruit that. I mean, in the same way the military goes to your high school and tries to recruit people, right? We remember that when I was in school, but we have to be doing the same thing. And it can't just be one company doing it. I mean, I think there's an opportunity to draw people into the industry, but that is, I think that's what we need.
For the remaining time, gentlemen, I want to go back to part of my initial question, and that was, are we targeting the wrong pool of candidates? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. And while you're at it, since we have 20 minutes left, I would love for you to share a topic that you're passionate about, that you like for us to put on the table within the next one of the next meetings. So I want to start with you, Scott.
Thanks, Adrian. One of the things that I'm becoming more and more interested in is AI and facilities management. I think a lot of people are a little apprehensive. In fact, some of them are downright scared about AI, and in light of what happens with the cybersecurity breaks and everything else, how do we do that? So I would like to see us potentially explore that. I've been doing my own research, and I know that there's probably a half dozen or 8 companies out there that are producing products that serve the property management multifamily arena. Because I'm hearing more and more of my clients say, are we a candidate for AI into the future? So maybe somebody else on the call can offer that same insight, but that's what I would say. Yeah.
I will take this even a step further, and I'd like to offer all of you and the rest of the group to maybe do a special podcast where, there's 3 of you who do by the way, next Monday, Mike and we have a couple of others, Jed and Juan. We're going to do a round table. We're going to do a podcast with, some very interesting topics that Mike had for questions they had for Jed. So we're going to do that. But I'd like to just kind of spin off our, 1-hour meetings, because we don't want to have 8, 10, 12 people on the call. It's kind of hard to go too deep into the stuff. but I would love for you to, volunteer if you have the time to join us. And I would like for this to be a topic of a separate podcast where maybe 2, 3 of you, Scott included, right? Because he's the one that brought this up to discuss the AI situation, right? Opportunities, challenges, what's out there. I've actually done a podcast with an AI expert that's like he teaches AI at a University of Georgia. He's involved, like very deeply involved in AI, and to me it was fascinating because he was very educational. Honestly, when we talk about AI, I think most people think 99% of AI is ChatGPT. It's a lot deeper than that, and it's a lot like it's a lot more to it than just ChatGPT. Scott, back to the other part of the question. Do you think that we're targeting the wrong pool of candidates while we're hiring? Do you think that that's part of the reason why we struggle to get the proper talent?
I think we're all fishing from the same pond. As I said, I'm also a licensed builder, so I know my builder colleagues are going to the schools and the voc schools and the high schools and promoting the trades. I know that my multifamily and commercial clients are looking at the same areas. So I think we are, shooting. We have the possibility to shoot fish in a barrel, but we may be missing the opportunities to find the precise match. So I'd love us to see come up with a matchmaking service, so to speak. What are your interests? I like to make birdhouses. I like to make napkins. Okay, so maybe you go to talk to the carpenter. Or I like to take things apart and put them back together. Okay, well, now we're talking about stuff we do on HVAC side. So maybe through the initial part of it, we talked about the pre-work assessments. I think those can be, very, inviting to people to say, answer these questions, and we can maybe come up with something that we use as a questionnaire that people can have and how to put them in the right spots because we probably have a spot for them. We just haven't thought about it.
Yeah, I have a question regarding that, those pre-employment assessments, or was it, does anybody have any recommendations or share what they use in terms of, candidate screening? Like, what are you using to assess skill aptitude?
We have one at the Binium. I actually scaled it down. It was 100 questions, and it was taking candidates about 2 hours to get through it, and it was absolutely ridiculous. So my team and I sat down. We went through it and scaled it down to probably a good 25 questions, and instead of it being a paper test, we actually asked them in person. So like face to face. So because we could see like if they're just, if they're flubbing their way through it or if they actually know what they're talking about. So our recruiters actually take the first set of questions. They know the answers, they ask them, and then they give the details to the hiring manager. So we've taken the hiring process, narrowed it down, made it a little bit more, specific. And then now we have a good understanding if they're highly qualified or not.
Now, I was going to go back to Mike and say, yeah, and let me say that we don't currently have one, and I've built them for decades. And I remember thinking about going back and looking at some of the ones I built, and I realized that I still have, discs that they're on. I think I got rid of my floppies, but I used to be able to save these things on floppy disks. How long I've been in the industry, or before we even had computers. But I remember building them myself, and to your point, Mike, or Jason, making them myself, having to scale them down. I also remember taking them from other companies and thinking, I know this stuff well, and this question's wrong. The answer to this question's wrong. And what I want to do at Greystar is once I get the approval to have this as part of the leveling process, which sounds like everyone's interested, human relation, they still have to say okay to this. And I think the key to that is it's got to be consistent. It's got to be consistent laid out. Somebody can't get a job because they know somebody that didn't have to take the process. Everyone needs to go through this. So there's not that liability issue. I want a third party to do this. I want to be the final person to look at it and say it makes sense, but I want to take it out of my hands so I don't have that bias of either my experience or the way I see it. So I think how I approach that skill assessment is going to be big, and I think it's going to be left to a third party, and I think it's going to be scaled to where they can take it on the internet remotely, probably when they're applying for the job. So that's the way I view it. And again, I want it to be a broad enough assessment, not like back in the day where you've got this role, and if you don't make this assessment, you're not going to be capable. I want it to be a broader spectrum assessment, so we can not stick a fish back in the lake because it's not the right type of fish we're fishing for today. You still might be able to use them somewhere else. So it's got to pay for itself.
So I will real quickly share just some different methods we've tried, right? So when I first started, we had a paper test that they handed you when you came in for your interview, and you did that. And just like Jade said, like there was questions, the questions and the answer key were, the answers were incorrect. We changed that, and because what we found was candidates would come into the office, the manager would be, they'd conduct an interview, but they were rushed and they didn't print out the exam, and so it was never given. So we created an online exam, Spanish and English versions. We had different, if the property had a pool, well, then it would include pool questions. If it didn't, and we were also using this at the time of COVID, when it was like the first introduction to virtual interviews for maintenance. And so they would just send out a link, and we could go online. You could see the results and everything. But the service I was using, or the website we were using, it would allow them to go in and take it multiple times, and there was nothing that would prevent them from you could Google you could Google the question or whatever, or look it up. So we were seeing people take a huge amount of time, or they retake it a bunch of times. It was flawed, but I mean, there are services out there that provide that opportunity. And then we've come back and we're like, hey, let's make it more conversational and directly ask these questions in the same way that Jason is doing it. And so we're still trying to find what the right way to do it is, because you can have the same questions, but depending on who's giving the interview, you do sacrifice consistency and the ability to really drill down. I mean, I think a lot of people do know how to talk enough, or can talk a big game, I guess. I don't know. It's just one of those things that I think we're trying to work through, and I was just curious. So thank you for everyone sharing.
Any thoughts? Any thoughts, Mike, on are we targeting the wrong pool of candidates, and also some topic for one of the next meetings if you have a favorite topic?
I don't know if we're targeting the wrong pool of candidates, but I think that the maintenance candidate, the maintenance supervisor, or the maintenance associate today is different than us and those that we grew up with, and I mean that because the technology, and you said it, Adrian, but a lot of these guys on these calls, I've heard you guys started as a entry-level groundskeeper or whatever, and you've progressed your way up through the company into a more senior role. I think those days are over, where someone would stay at a property and literally be mentored by the more senior associate and continue to have patience to learn, develop, and grow. Today, we just turn people over, and everybody's just anxious to move on to the next role or next opportunity. So I think the maintenance, it's unrealistic to think, maybe it's not unrealistic, but it's less common that people actually learn and develop in that way. So I think that it's definitely different. How do we adapt to that? And I think it's less technical skill. We're seeing less technical skill. One thing I think is that you need to be a good manager of process. And that is, our properties are bigger. There's just all these different components that I see. Just the responsibilities of on-site associates is different than it was. We used to be more focused on fixing things. Now we got to just manage, keep the trains moving on time, and it's more of a process. So I don't know. I just see a lot of differences in the role.
Yeah, I think to that point, today's market they see success as money, whereas we saw success as knowledge. I think that's probably the big difference that separates the two. Our knowledge, I think, is what makes us wealthy in our day and age. And nowadays, it's you want me to fix an appliance, it's $10. You want me to fix an air conditioner, now it's $20. It's just everything's driven by money. I've seen in the last 5 years one person jumped jobs 3 times just for $1 or 75 cents. And, when I was coming up, it wasn't worth it for me to do that. I felt the career and the length of time that I spent at a property was more important. And that was my growth as opposed to somebody giving me an extra 50 cents. So to your point, I think that's probably what's driving it nowadays is they see wealth as money, not knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think we are part of that problem, because to speak to Jay and Mike, what they're saying, yeah, I think we're in the right pool, but we are all fishing from the same pond. And so we're having now guys, that know, well, I can go over here to Jay over here at Graystar and I can get another 50 cents, 75 cents, $1 from him. Well, Maybe. Then I can go over here to Mike at NRP and, he's going to want to beat Jay. So, and I think we're artificially driving this up, because I've got guys coming in here, as a beginner tech, want $30, $32, $33 an hour for a beginning tech. And, I tell all of my guys that I interview, because we can teach you the trade. We can teach you how to fix things. What we cannot teach you is the mindset of taking ownership of your property. We cannot teach you that you want to take ownership of this, and we cannot teach you that, that drive, that initiative that you need to better yourself. You better yourself, you're going to better the company in the process. And that's what we can't teach them. They're like Mickey said, they're jumping from one job to another. They're chasing that 50 cents, that 75 cents, that dollar. How can you compete against that? And like I said, I think we are artificially driving that price up.
Yeah, I think a good point, Daniel. And Adrian, there was a conversation on LinkedIn this morning. I saw you chiming in. It was a very good conversation. And it was speaking to this, is that there have been companies, or there's people that are so anxious to be promoted or, chase that dollar, and say, hey, I got an opportunity to go be a regional maintenance manager over here. Well, then we're quick. We want to retain them, and people, okay, well, we'll make you a regional maintenance manager. Like, we have elevated people to roles without the knowledge. We've elevated people to levels of pay without the skill and knowledge. And now it's just, there's this inconsistency where, like, I keep talking about, like, years ago, like, there was a gentleman on this conversation talking about, like, a regional maintenance manager used to have significant knowledge, and really now it's just a glorified, I don't know, it's kind of lost it's a watered down role now. And we have created that problem in the industry. So I get, if I were to interview a regional maintenance manager, a lot of the candidates I would see are, in my opinion, maintenance supervisors. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, to what their level of knowledge is and what their work experience is. A lot of times they just elevate people, give them the title, and they're still spending a lot of their time supporting on-site, work.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said here. And I want for all of you to consider another point of view here. Those individuals that are jumping for a little raise from one job to another, for them, this, $1 an hour might make the difference between making their mortgage payments or not making it in a month. Inflation has been devastating for the last 2, 3, 4 years. The government numbers are nowhere near the reality. Because you go to the store and you see 30, 50% increase in your grocery price, and then the inflation can be 8% when everything else is like 20, 30, 40% more expensive. For someone on the lower end of the pay scale, like, that's devastating. I own a couple of properties. My residents cannot afford. They don't have savings. I had to just forfeit my my deposit. People they don't have $2,000 to put down for deposit. This is a reality. It's a blue collar neighborhood. So there's a lot. I think that there's a lot more to it. It doesn't mean that what you are saying is not true. That people are more money driven. That maybe back in a day where knowledge was more valuable, we thought, okay, we just gonna gain this knowledge, then we could ask for more money. But there's also this other angle that, it's just survival for some. They're simply survival. Oscar, I wanna give you the opportunity to chime in on a pool of candidates. Get your take on, is this, are we targeting the right candidates for the jobs? And then also, I want for you to suggest a topic for a future conversation for us.
Last week, I agree with all of you, all your feedback. Last week, I was at Indianapolis at the Institute of Real Estate Management Global Summit, along with all the CPMs and everything. And definitely AI has become a big ticket item. And that's immediately what I thought, exactly what Scott was saying. How is that going to connect with the maintenance aspect that we need to work on? That's one. So that will be a good topic. The other one is, I agree with everything that you're saying, but could it be also, think about the pandemic? Who became the most important thing in the pandemic? Our maintenance crew, right? The importance, the backbone of the way we operate. And I was wondering, obviously, IREM and different organizations have different titles: CPM, Certified Property Manager, accredited residential managers, and even the apartment associations have some of that. But could it also be that one of the reasons why we're not finding that is also because it's not as appealing for certain people? Could that be it? Could it be that the maintenance people need some type of better acknowledgement and the importance of what we do in our industry? And maybe that can also attract more into our industry, because it seems I was a maintenance technician. I was there for 5 years. I was an on-site manager. And obviously I became a CPN and AMO and all that. But I always go back to my beginning, which is my backbone, which is being maintenance, as being the main core of everything that structured me in my career for 25 years. So could it be also that we're missing that? Yes, a thought is to be that maybe that's one of also the reasons why we're having the problem with having more attraction into that, because sometimes people feel that they're not attractive enough to that type of thing. I teach some seminars here with the Institute of Real Estate Management in Orange County in my chapter, and I try to do seminars where I attract and bring people to my seminars, and some of them are related to maintenance, and I don't see a lot of maintenance people that come in as an attendance. It's mainly CPMs or ARMs, but not the maintenance people, which is the whole reason why I'm there, to bring them in. And I think that's something that we're missing here. We gotta, like Scott is saying, we gotta think outside the box. It could be a combination of everything that we're talking about, but perhaps could that be it? I mean, that's a question for us to ask ourselves. Maybe that's what we need to think about too.
Yeah, totally agree. And I'm just gonna make one more point before we wrap up. At the national or local level, at associations, the maintenance topics that you see on education events, they're typically not led by someone that turned a wrench in their life, that has a maintenance background. So what does that tell everybody? And I'm not knocking down the individuals that are speaking on maintenance without the maintenance background. I'm not. I'm sure that there's a lot of value in what they're saying. But me personally, if I was to follow someone, I wouldn't follow Simon Sinek. I will follow a practitioner. For me, Simon Sinek is a great businessman because he sells books and speeches, but I never heard of him, like turning around any type of company the way he teaches others to do their own. And to me, that's where the value is. And it goes back to this. Have you done it? Speak about what you have done. Have you done it yourself? I'll go through the fire with you. I'll follow you to the fire if I know for a fact that you have done it successfully. But for someone just speaks thinking that, okay, we believe that this is the way it should be, I don't put 100% of my money on it, because they might be right, but they might not be right.
All roads, for example, yeah, he's still practicing what he preaches, and he's sharing it with the world. Yeah,
100%. And there are several of us that are still preaching the word, but I think we just need more of us. We need to we need to lift people up. I think we need to have a national level conference just for maintenance, for facilities with our own people, and just elevate. Like, it's not gonna come from anyone else. I think just group could be like a great catalyst for everything that could happen good in the industry for facilities. If we're not becoming the change, we can't really expect or demand change from anywhere else. Because we're the one that are invested in this, directly invested. We should be the ones like taking the lead and creating that change. And it's not gonna happen fast. Because when you think about it, we're in 2024. I was we should have this conversation, a minute ago, but it's still good that we have it. I'm very grateful that, you'll make time and, you're here. And I think, we're making great progress. We're creating something, we're building something. It might not be like very visible today, but I think it is. Each one of us takes something and, go back and, implements at their own, workplace from these conversations. And also we record for the world to see it. So I'm super grateful for all of you. I'm gonna take all the notes from you and just kind of put a couple of topics for 2 weeks from now. And Scott and Oscar, I promise that I'll put together a podcast, a separate one just for AI. And I'm gonna invite you all. It's gonna be on a first come first serve basis. I will love for you to. And I think I'm gonna bring someone that actually builds technology using AI. So we hear the technology, like we hear it from the horse's mouth, like the person that actually builds that type of thing, so we could get a different angle from them too. Would you find that interesting? Yeah, maybe we'll bring him to like this, 1 hour meeting, and then we could spin off and, do a podcast with or without them. We could decide later on. Okay. Gentlemen, a pleasure as always. Have an amazing rest of the day. Have an amazing week, and see you all in 2 weeks. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.